The Gift of Harbin. There were so many gifts I received while I was a resident at Harbin Hot Springs. And since it's been about 2 years since the Valley Fire sadly destroyed Harbin, I think it's appropriate that I tell my story. So my story with Harbin actually began in September of 2014. I had been doing a lot of work with a man named Michael Keeney, who I met in San Francisco, and I was doing a lot of work on myself in terms of how to create a life for myself where I would have more freedom and happiness and power in my life. And I was talking on the phone with him one day, and I said to him, Michael, you know what? I want it all. I don't want to just focus on one particular area of my life. I want the whole thing. And Michael said to me, well, I think we need to go on a vision quest. So a couple weeks later, he picked me up at the North Berkeley BART station, and we started driving up north, and I had no idea where we were going. And I didn't until we arrived at the front gate of Harbin Hot Springs in Middletown, California. And I had heard about Harbin before because my friend Michael used to go up all the time, and I knew that it was a clothing optional retreat center, so that made me a little nervous at first, but I decided to keep an open mind and see what it's all about. And the first thing we did was we drove up to the Watsu pools. Now, Watsu is a term that it's short for water shiatsu, which is a modality of massage that was invented at Harbin Hot Springs. And so Michael scheduled the Watsu massage for me, and so I was up there with Patrice, was my practitioner, and it was incredibly powerful. If I were to describe what it was like for me doing Watsu, I would say it is like going back to the womb. It was very, very emotional for me. A lot of thoughts about my grandparents were coming up for me, a lot of thoughts about my mother, who died when I was only 3 years old. And it was just so loving and caring, and Patrice was just so wonderful as she gently rocked and massaged my body. But this feeling just came over me, and I just started thinking to myself, all I want is God. All I want is God. All I want is God. And that's what I was left with from the Watsu massage. So later that day, after the massage, Michael and I went up to the area, they called it Main Side, and this is where the other pools were, and the steam room is, and the sauna, and things like that. And so this was the first time I'd actually ever been naked in front of anyone, and it was only weird for the first few seconds. And as I was standing there without wearing any clothes and looking at everybody else, it occurred to me that everyone started to look the same. It was the bodies of everyone started to blend together. I mean, some people were fat and some people were skinny, some people were bald and others were hairy, but it was all just kind of starting to blend into one. Even I started to see a little difference between men and women as well. Even with their anatomical differences, it all started to look androgynous to me. What I concluded from that was that we're all equal, and our clothes that we wear in our normal day-to-day lives convey a lot about us. It's our social persona, and we can hide behind that sometimes, and it can create a lot of misperceptions about people just based on what they're wearing. But when everyone's naked, that all gets stripped away, and we're all just kind of funny-looking, vulnerable, yet beautiful creatures. And the other big insight that I got from that was just being comfortable in my own body was just so huge, because your body is inextricably linked to everything you think, feel, and experience. So if you can learn to be comfortable in it, it will set you free in so many different ways, as it did for me. So I did several other massages while I was there, and Michael and I did some Gestalt work, And I remember one morning we were sitting in the garden, and it was really strange because it occurred to me that something was very different about Harbin, and I could not find the words to describe it. It was almost like my vision was in some way was sharper or was enhanced in some way at Harbin, and I had tons of energy when I was there too. It was really hard for me to sleep each night that I was there, and I asked Michael about that, and he said to me that Harbin is actually in an energy vortex and that it is considered sacred land by Native Americans in the area. My last night at Harbin, we went to a Kirtanika concert, which is kirtan and electronica combined. It was at the Harbin Temple, and it was Lakshmi and Ananda. It was this married couple from Oregon who were just really, really wonderful singers. And I was at the concert and just really enjoying it, but I was reflecting back over the weekend as we were at the concert and was thinking to myself, I just want it all, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready, I'm ready for total transformation. I'm ready to leave the past behind and embrace my destiny and align myself with the will of the universe. The last song of the evening was called "This Is the Day," and it was really, really, really weird, but really cool. And the lyrics, the chorus to "This Is the Day" is, "This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am." So a couple days later, I was back at work in San Francisco. I was working for Wells Fargo Bank at the time, and in the ensuing weeks, everything started to get really, really difficult at work. It felt like there were always obstacles in my way that were preventing me from doing my job. I remember one day riding public transportation, and it was so full I couldn't even get to work on time, and just every day after work I was just so stressed out and fatigued, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I started thinking, you know what, I'm being sent a loud and clear message here that it's time to go. And this was a very, very scary thing for me, and I would say it was a crisis. Somehow I mustered up the courage to resign. I gave my 2 weeks notice. They weren't expecting it at all. And that was it. No more Wells Fargo. I threw it away. So in the ensuing weeks after that, I didn't have a job. I had no school. Living on my own in San Francisco. I had no authority figures over me in any way telling me what to do. It was the first time in my life I had absolutely nothing to do, no structure at all. And the immediate feeling of this was just euphoria, like unlike anything I've ever felt in my life. And so it was cool. So, I was hanging out in cafes every day, going to movies late at night on a weekday, and just wandering all over San Francisco. But then one day I started to get a little bit scared because I honestly did not know what to do. No clue. And I was terrified, and I had this feeling come over me, like I started to understand what happens to prisoners who have been in prison for a really long time and have become institutionalized, that when they get out of prison, they don't know how to handle the freedom and lack of structure. And in a way, that was happened to me. One day I was talking to Michael again, and I was just asking him, I'm just feeling just really lost and confused, and I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do with all the free time I have. And he said, well, how about you see about working over at Harbin? So I was thinking, that's an interesting idea. So he gave me the number for the HR department. I called them up and I asked them, hey, are you guys hiring by any chance? And They said they were, and a few days later I was up there interviewing, and it went really smoothly. And a few days later they called me back and said that I'd been accepted as a new candidate for residency. And looking back on that, one of the huge takeaways I got from that is when things are happening that easily, when the doors for you are just flying open like that, you know you're on the right track. So I get up to Harbin. This is the beginning of December in 2015. And I mean, talk about a departure from the environment I was in before. I was living in the residence dorm, which was really cool because it was right above the pool area, and I would start and end my day doing my rotation, starting in the meditation pool, then I'd go over to the hot pool, then the cold plunge, then I'd go over to the steam room, and then the cold plunge again. And it was just this amazing way to jumpstart my day. And it was so cool because the pools were open 24 hours a day, so I could go anytime I wanted. What I especially loved, what was really magical, was going up to the pools when it was raining outside. What I would do is I would let myself get really hot in the steam room, and then I would go out to the sun deck and just lay down and just totally surrender. I'm just surrendering in so many ways, and just let the drops of rain cool my body, and it was just absolutely magical. And that's things like that I miss so much about Harbin. One of the other cool things that was such a gift about Harbin was all the people that were around. I mean, I was never lonely when I was there. There was always someone to talk to, and I would always hang out in this area this house called the Res Center, the Residence Center. And they had a big communal kitchen there with a few sinks and a few refrigerators, so a lot of the residents would do their cooking there. And I remember when I first got there, I was actually feeling a little bit frustrated because I wasn't as good of a cook as I wanted to be. But fortunately, there were some really good cooks there that I could learn from. So I started learning so much about food because a lot of people at Harbin were really conscious about their diets. And I started learning about the benefits of eating organic and avoiding processed food and things like that. And I still carry that with me today. The other big thing that I got from is I think Harbin turned me into an environmentalist, because on a metaphysical level I really started to see the impact that my actions were having on the environment, and not just for of course the people around me, but the land itself. I started to realize that whatever I do to Mother Nature, I'm doing to myself, which was a very, very profound learning experience for me. So the friendships that I made were just incredible. I think that's the biggest takeaway. I was in a band when I was there, I was playing with a group called the Peculiars, which was not something I was expecting at all. And come June of 2015, I decided that I was ready to go. I decided to travel around Europe for 4 months. And that was 3 months before the fire happened. So in a lot of ways, I was very fortunate. I wasn't around when that trauma happened, which was so sad for so many people and so many of my friends there. But I can say my memories of Harbin are among the most vivid I've ever had in my life, and I carry the experience with me. And I since I left Harbin, I have so much more love in my heart from the waters and the meditation and the chanting and the dances and the deep conversations I had with people really healed my mind, body, and spirit. And it really sent me on a trajectory to be able to see the world in a different way, to embrace the future, to embrace new experiences with a much more of an open mind, and more love and greater faith in God. And those are what I would say are the greatest gifts I got from Harbin.